Hey guys, and thanks for tuning in. In this video, I'm actually playing some close quarters action with the 870 combat shotgun for no other reason than because I can. This video isn't so much about the gun, it's just some footage for you guys to have in the background. There's a bit of a close quarters theme going on this week, as my Pick Me Play Me video that will be out in a couple of days is also on close quarters maps, as requested by you guys. So I thought I'd do another video on the close quarters maps as well. But this is really so I can have a bit of a chat with you guys about Battlefield 4 and my thoughts on it. So the game in general is what we're going to talk about, and there's some leaked information on Battlefield 4 which has been found on the lovely internet. There's a list of things that supposedly are going to be in the game that's been leaked by EA China. I'm not really going to go down the entire list. There's been a couple of videos already doing that have done a really good job and really going into detail about what's on the list. What I'm really going to do is just pick a couple of things out that I think that's important, and just go over a couple of those and just chat really about Battlefield 4 in general. Let me just say though, this information is not official in any way, shape or form. This information is leaked, and as such it's rumoured, and it could be complete nonsense and not true. So please bear that in mind with this video. This information that I'm giving you now is not confirmed as of yet. It is merely speculation. So we were told probably a month ago that Battlefield 4 would be released, and that they were working on it, and that it was going to come out at the back end of next year, 2013. And that was huge news. We now just past Battlefield 3's first birthday, and if the Battlefield 4 release date on this information is to be believed, that it's going to be released in October 2013, then you'd be looking at a 2-year turnaround from Battlefield 3 to Battlefield 4. Now that's compared to a 5-year turnaround from Battlefield 2 to Battlefield 3, so it's a much shorter window. Now I'm not including Bad Company in that because it's a spin-off series and I'm merely referring to the actual main Battlefield franchise. But let me start by saying that Battlefield 3 did a lot of things right. There were plenty of things that it could have done that could have been better and made the game even bigger than it was. Things that will push the game forward for years to come. You know, unlike, say, games like Battlefield 2 that have had 5 years before the next title is released, they were kind of pushed along by community content, a lot of public play and things like that. They had Battle Recorder in there, people could make videos, and it kind of kept the game going. When you look at games this day and age, though, we're at a stage, unfortunately, where big games, the time between games is far less, and as a result we're seeing less innovation and revolution in the next iteration of the game. You could use Call of Duty as an example, but I think with Call of Duty, if you look at Black Ops 2, they've done a lot of innovation with that, so I think it would be unfair necessarily to single that one out. You know, innovation can be made. I think just maybe the last couple of iterations of Call of Duty, for example, have just not been done that well. But Black Ops 2 is actually shaping up to be a really good game with plenty of innovation. With Battlefield 3, though, having not so much revolution, if you like, between that and Battlefield 4, I don't think is such a bad thing. I mean, if you look at the base game of Battlefield 3, that is a solid game in my opinion. And it's a brilliant game. It really is brilliant. I mean, I didn't pump 500 plus hours into the game because it's bad, you know, and plenty of other people have done the same thing. So if you take that base game, improve certain elements, and bring it back as a new title with new maps, as long as you're adding stuff in and giving it, you know, new life with some of the features that we're going to cover, then I think you've got a winner. You know, because Battlefield 3 is already a fantastic game. It's a phenomenal game. You know, you can put so many hours into that game, you know, and it's unlike many other FPS games out there. So let's have a look at some of the things on this leak list that I think are the main points that, if true, I think is going to make Battlefield 4 a massive hit. So according to this information, the game will be released on PC, of course, which is standard, PS3, Xbox 360, and next generation consoles as well. So what this information is saying is kind of something that I predicted, if you like, some time ago when Battlefield 4 was announced. I did a little video and I said that I felt Battlefield 4 would coincide with the release of next generation consoles at the end of 2013. This is what makes me think that this particular piece of information is true. And it's something that I thought made sense right from the first announcement. You know, a launch title for such a big console, PS4, Xbox 720, whatever they're going to be called, let's just call them those right now for the sake of argument. You know, having Battlefield 3 as a launch title for those would be a massive, massive win for the Battlefield franchise as a whole. And that's something that I think is believable. I think that's something that EA would really like. You know, just before Christmas 2013, brand spanking new console, brand spanking new game. I think that fits in perfectly, if you ask me. Now, skimming over the list here a little bit, I come to something quite remarkable and something that, if true, will gain a lot of support from die-hard Battlefield fans that wanted this in Battlefield 3, who were very disappointed when it wasn't. And that's something called Commander Mode. So, if you're not familiar with this, basically in Battlefield 2, during any game, a player was able to fulfill the role of commander instead of being in the field. They kind of were in the field, but they were just sort of AFK on the commander screen. And what they'd have is they'd have this top-down view of the battlefield. They could drop in supplies for players or for vehicles, issue commands to certain squads to attack certain areas, and so forth. So they were controlling the flow of the game, trying to dictate what their team were doing to help win the game. And that's something that kind of set Battlefield apart. You know, this larger scale warfare with this commander overseeing the battlefield, issuing commands, dropping in vehicles, dropping in supplies. It really gave it a very unique feel. Back then, though, the commander role was assigned on rank. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the highest ranking person in the server could be the commander. So if you just started the game and there's a rank 70 in the server, you're not going to be able to be the commander, because they don't want people, you know, fulfilling this role and just dossing about. They want somebody that is familiar with the game so they can, you know, really help their team. Now, I read back when I saw this list. I read back some interviews from when Battlefield 3 was released, so I could kind of gain some perspective as if this commander mode is something that would be true and that they would put back in the game. In the interviews, they do say it's completely possible to implement it in Battlefield 3. They just chose not to. They said that plenty of people in the DICE offices wanted to put the role in Battlefield 3, but some wanted to completely change it up. And their main concern was that this one player would have this role, or one player per team, but he would just be sat AFK somewhere on the map doing this role as he should. And that's one less player in the field. So in Battlefield 3 they decided to give that power to the squad leaders instead. So I think that the commander role could possibly make a comeback. It was something that people did request. But if these rumours are to be true and it does come back, I don't think it's going to be entirely like it was. So expect a major overhaul with the system. So moving down the list, I come to something that, if also is true, will make me a very happy person. And that is that Battlefield 4 will support video playback and sharing. Now, this doesn't say Battle Recorder as such, but it kind of is saying Battle Recorder without actually using the words Battle Recorder. You know, it's got an indication that there'll be an inbuilt system for recording the game, just something that really hindered Battlefield completely, in my opinion. You know, some of the content for the game that's been done with no battle recorder is remarkable. You know, and the community will, without a shadow of a doubt, push Battlefield 4 forward in a huge way, should it have the capability to record. You know, you're not going to get an FPS hit trying to record, or need an Uber PC to record and play at high graphics. You know, and let's take Counter-Strike for example, okay? Regardless of the version that you're talking about, if we take Counter-Strike as an example, what you do when you record in Counter-Strike, you run a command in the console, and it doesn't actually record video, it records information. And then when you play back that demo, it kind of takes that information and replays, if you like, almost reenacts what the recorded information gave it. All the positions of players, where you fired, etc., etc. sounds. So it's not taking any FPS hit because it's only recording information. It's a tiny little file, so it's not a big, huge video file. You can save as many as you want, go back, edit, etc., etc. Adding that feature to the consoles as well would be a huge thing, and something that I imagine would be a massive feature on next-gen consoles. Call of Duty Black Ops 2 is already implementing something huge, with its codcasting and recording on consoles as well. So that's something that I really think would be important to have in the game. So there's supposedly going to be 3 factions being in Battlefield 4. We're talking USA, Russia and China. So that's an extra faction if we compare it to Battlefield 3. That is something that is really a massive thing for me, though, if I'm honest. We will undoubtedly, though, then see maps like we used to have on Battlefield 2 and 2142, where different teams will be on each map. So you may have one map where it's USA versus China, or USA versus Russia, China versus Russia, etc. And on top of that, there was also information to suggest that there will be you'll be able to deploy female soldiers, which actually is pretty believable to me, as there's a fair few requests for this when Battlefield 3 was actually released. So moving on, we're on to the next major point, or rumour, if you want to call it that. That is that the game will be running on Frostbite 2. Not much of a rumour. I think that's a given. It's no real surprise. That's their main engine. I'm sure the game's going to look very much like Battlefield 3. I mean, 2 years isn't really a massive amount of time to make huge changes to an engine, but I have no doubt that there'll be many improvements to the engine. And also a major factor that I want to focus on here is that when you look at Battlefield 3, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, you may not agree with me, Battlefield 3 was somewhat limited by consoles in many regards. I think certain stage in development they had to focus on the console side of things, and that did limit the PC version in some areas. There's no doubt in my mind that at first this game was developed for PC, because you don't get graphics and an engine as amazing as Frostbite 2 if you're making it for console and then porting it to PC. I definitely think it started the other way around. But if these rumours are to be true, and that the game will be on the 3 main platforms will be PC, PS4 and Xbox 720, or whatever that's going to be called, the versions were going to be a lot closer to the PC versions. Obviously they're still not going to be as powerful as a PC, but they'll be far, far closer, meaning hopefully there'll be less sacrifices in game design. The new gen consoles will apparently have 64 players for once as well, but the older consoles like PS3 and Xbox 360 will still have their lower player count. So I think the main platforms are going to be the next gen and PC. I think that PS3 and Xbox 360 versions aren't going to be as good because they're just simply going to be downgraded and ported across. Also, the consoles, next gen consoles supposedly will have 60 FPS, which for console games is a huge thing. You know, it's something that COD devs go on about quite a bit. And in fairness, when you play Battlefield 3 on the console, and either play Call of Duty then on the console or go back to PC and play Battlefield 3 at 120 FPS, you really do notice how jerky it is at 30 FPS. It's not very responsive. So having the game running at 60, assuming it's going to be a smooth 60, will be a massive, massive thing for console players. What they're also saying is that the actual engine, Frostbite 2, they're currently, on Battlefield 3, they're getting about 30 or 40% of what the engine is capable of in performance-wise. According to this, if it's to be believed, Battlefield 4, it's going to be up in the 60, 70, 80% performance of what the engine's capable of. So there is going to be a marked increase in certain elements, but you're not going to see the massive jump that you did when Battlefield 3 first came out, because we're already familiar with the engine and how it looks. So don't expect a massive jump like you got from Battlefield 2, to Battlefield 3. So that is a ton of information I've just thrown your way. There are other things on the list that I haven't covered, and I have mainly just given bits of information and my thoughts on things without trying to bore you all with every little piece of information on there. But I think Battlefield 4 is going to be a massive game. I think they've learned from their mistakes, and, well, I hope they've learned from their mistakes, and they're going to just take Battlefield 3, which is an amazing game, And instead of reinventing the wheel, they're just going to build on it and add in things that we wanted from the start. And if they do that, I think they're onto a winner. So please check out my other videos, like and subscribe, and as always, I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.